and welcome to the Ramblings of a 42-Year-Old Man. Chris Smith again here with you today. And, most of my videos are usually about something recent that's maybe a movie that's just come out or football that's happening over the weekend. I do have my Final Fantasy series where I kind of have jumped back a little bit nostalgia. And what I want to do is kind of do something else similar to that where I'll talk about maybe an older movie or an older video game or something that I really loved. And, sometimes they may be ones that a lot of people know, but I really, really enjoy them. Or they might be ones like the one I'm going to talk about this week, where most people who are watching this will have never heard of this movie. And if you have, I hope you like it as much as I did, because this is one that I love. And I was actually just looking at the streaming channels the other day, looking for something to watch, and this popped up, and I had to throw it on again because I enjoyed it so much. So today we will be talking about the 2014 horror drama film, Dark Was the Night. So again, Dark Was the Night was released. This was in 2014, so we're coming on 9 years ago now. And it was very quiet when it was released. It was not a big blockbuster or anything. I don't even remember seeing it a whole lot on the horror Twitter sphere that I usually look at. But this one I came across one day on Netflix, just surfing around looking for something, and this popped up, and I can't remember what it was that grabbed me. I think the idea that reading the synopsis of it sounds very much like a creature feature, and I do typically like those kind of movies, so I'm like, okay, let's throw this on, and I loved it. I absolutely just adored it, and I kind of researched a little bit to see if this was, from a big name director, or from some of the actors on there are well enough known that I was curious to see kind of how things got going. And again, just a very small movie, very small, but really, really enjoyable. So I'll get into some of the behind the scenes of it real quick. So it was directed by Jack Heller, who is much more known as a producer than a director. In fact, this is one of only 2 movies he directed. The first one being one called Enter Nowhere that I'm also interested in checking out. I have not had a chance to find that one yet. But again, mostly producer. He's done movies like Bone Tomahawk with Kurt Russell, Zombieland 2. He was a producer on, along with many other ones. He seems to be mostly in the producing world, but he stepped out to direct this one. This was written by Tyler Hissel, maybe it's Hisel. And so this script had been on the Hollywood Blacklist back in 2009, and the Hollywood Blacklist pretty much is the top scripts that had not been turned into movies at that point. There's always like a list of those, and this was on there as a script that was one of the top ones in 2009 that had not yet to be made. 5 years later, it does get made into this movie, and starring, and here's where it gets really fun. So the main star of this movie is Kevin Durand, who most people may not recognize that name, but I guarantee when you see him, you would recognize his face. He has been in so much stuff, a lot of character actor works, a lot of playing henchmen and bad guys sometimes, but this one he's got over 80 acting credits, and you will recognize his face if you see him. And I love the fact that he's given the movie to really take over. He is the main star of this film, and he does an amazing job. When I get into some of the reasons why I really love this movie, I'll get into the decisions that he makes as an actor that really, really stick with me. So along with him is Lucas Haas, and most of us would know him as the kid back in Harrison Ford's Witness in the early 80s. That was one of his first roles. He was really young then, and he did a lot of work throughout his childhood moving up, and then recently he's been in movies like Inception and The Revenant, and so his adult career has been kind of continuing on. He's one of those child actors that was able to transition into adult career as well. Bianca Kajlik is in this. She, for me, I would recognize her the most from Halloween Resurrection. Probably the worst Halloween movie, but I do recognize her as being in there. She's also currently on a show called The Winchesters, which is like a prequel to the Supernatural series that just wrapped up a couple years ago. And then she spent a number of years on a TV comedy called Rules of Engagement as well. And there's a lot of other kind of smaller like side characters in here. Nick Demisi is one. He plays a bartender in the movie, but even he, with just a few scenes, really stands out. And Nick Demisi, he was in Stakeland. There are 2 different Stakeland movies he was in, and then he was also in a really cool werewolf movie called Night of the Wolf. That he does a really, really great job. He's the main actor of that one. So Again, these actors, I'll get into kind of what about their characters I really enjoy as we go forward. But so Kevin Durand plays Sheriff Paul Shields, and you can tell from kind of just the way that he's portraying it, he's got a lot of grief and sadness going on there. We're not quite sure where it's coming from, not quite sure where it's going, but there's something going on there that we'll find out as we continue forward. Lucas Haas plays his deputy, and his character is Donnie Saunders, and he had recently transferred over to this smaller town from a New York precinct. And then Bianca Kajlik is Paul's wife, and I think I mentioned Nick Demisi, he plays a bartender in the town. So get into more about these characters, their motivations, and the story beats in our next section. All right, so quick plot synopsis about Dark Was the Night. So when a logging company decimates the forest around a small town, the sheriff and his deputy must confront the violent and unexplainable events that follow. So very generic there, but I'll get into a little bit more of the story beats on this. So very small rural town, somewhere up north because it's constantly snowing, a lot of forest around there. There is a lot of logging going on. And so our very first scene is of kind of a logging work site, and then some violence happens on the site, and then that's kind of our cold open, and we jump into the movie. So Sheriff Paul Shields, again played by Kevin Durand with a D, not a T, Durand, and his deputy Donnie Saunders, Lucas Haas, are called to a local horse ranch to investigate a missing horse. Paul obviously is going through some sort of grief. We're not sure what, but our very first scene of him, he's just kind of sitting at the edge of his bed, kind of getting ready to go out for the day, put on a sheriff, I don't want to say costume, put a sheriff uniform on, and he's got, tears in his eyes, and there's this blue filter for most of the movie, especially for like daytime external scenes that just kind of add to this feeling of grief that is going on throughout the movie. We aren't sure yet what's happened. We'll find out later on, but, and then Donnie, the deputy character, recently transferred over from a New York precinct where he had been injured on duty, and his partner had died. So he transferred over to the smaller community, probably, get away from some of the memories and the violence that was happening over in New York. So they're called out to the ranch. They are, to investigate this missing horse. They don't think much of it. They think the horse probably jumped the fence at this point. We get a little bit of backstory with Paul and his wife. They've recently separated, not divorced yet, just she's living with her parents right now. And it is kind of going on with whatever grief it is that they're having. Paul just can't seem to get past it, and so he's really shut her out, and so they're separated. And they do have a son who is kind of split between the two of them. Is like, hey, when's mommy coming home and stuff like that. And we do see that night when Paul goes to put his son to bed that there is another bed in the room that is not being used. And so we do find out through the story that Paul and Susan had two children, two boys, and the youngest one, while Paul was watching him, slipped and fell in a kiddie pool and bumped his head and passed away. And so there's a lot of blame here from Paul. Like, he was the protector. He should have been able to protect his son, and he wasn't able to. He failed to in his mind, and he's having a hard time dealing with that grief. And Susan's also, dealing with grief in her own way. There's no, and I'll get into this when I get into the section of what I love, but there's no blame here. Like, the only person really blaming anything is Paul is blaming himself. The wife is very much like, it's, she understands it was not his fault. It could just as easily have happened to her, but the grief that they're going through, they're just not being able to communicate together on it. So one night, while the other son, Adam, is at Paul's home, he sees something out the window at night, and Paul goes and he investigates and hears some noises and stuff, but he's not really able to find anything out there. But the next day they wake up to find giant footprints, but they don't look like feet. They look more like animal prints going across the window where Adam saw him at the whatever he saw at night. But then these prints travel all the way across town, like to other people's houses, across the horse ranch, down the main street of the town. They're just going constantly. And these prints don't make a whole lot of sense. They look like animal prints. They almost look like cloven, like hoof prints, but they're on only two legs, bipedal. So there's no kind of animal that makes these kind of prints. So as they're kind of going around, the townsmen, people are all kind of talking about how, these hoof prints kind of coincide with the fact that there's a lack of animals in the woods right now. The hunters are all having trouble finding anything in the woods because the animals all seem to be fleeing out of it. We get a pretty cool scene where Paul and Donnie are talking, and they look up and they see just hundreds and hundreds of birds fleeing out of the woods as well. So even the flight animals are clearing out of the woods. And then Earl, who is Nick Demisi, he's the local kind of bar owner, and also hunter too. And he kind of states that all the deer have seemed to left the forest and everything like that. So you'll see throughout the story, you kind of have these little side characters just with scenes here or there, but they all do an amazing job. The acting in this, I truly, truly love. So during this, after all the birds kind of go out, that night they're called out again to the horse farm, the horse ranch, because there's something is banging on the barn at night, and the rancher is like, I'm going to go out there, whatever it is, I'm going to shoot it. So they have to kind of get out, calm down the rancher. But while they're there, they start hearing the banging too. So they're going to go check it out, and some large figure kind of runs away from them out into the woods, and they're not able to see what it was or anything. But the next morning, there's giant scratches down the side of the barn. The ground is all dug up, and there's those hoof prints again that we were able to see. So whatever that creature was walking all across town was there that night as well. So there's, they kind of begin to theorize what could possibly be, and is it maybe some newly undiscovered predator that's being driven out of the woods because of the logging that's been happening, getting kind of an ecological thing where we're taking its home from it, so it has nowhere to go but over into this town. And so that same day, there are hunters out in the woods. It's, I guess, near the end of hunting season, so they're trying to get something before the end of hunting season, and they get attacked by whatever the creature is. Two of them get killed. One of them makes it. He's really not able to give much of a description of what he sees other than that it was big and it was fast, and they do find the bodies of the hunters all strung up in the trees. And so a curfew is enacted in the town where nobody is allowed to be out after dark. And to coincide with this curfew, there's this giant snowstorm coming in too. So a lot of the town evacuates. So there may be a couple dozen people who actually stay behind, and they're in curfew to stay inside. And so that night at Paul's house, he's got Adam with him. And all of a sudden the creature or whatever is in the woods starts coming towards the house and starts coming into the house. And so they're hiding. And Paul's able to get a call out to Donnie. Donnie comes driving up, scares the creature off, and they decide to get kind of everybody together, sheltered at the church in town. A, from the storm, and B, from whatever's going on with this creature, who all of a sudden is getting much more aggressive and able to break into people's homes. And so they're all gathered in the church, and Paul, again, as he's had this grief of, I've not been able to protect my son, I have failed as a protector, and his wife is like, look, these people, the townspeople, they trust you. They trust you to protect them. And you see that there is a lot of trust. Every one of these people really seem to like the sheriff and trust him, take care of him. Even there's one character early on in the movie, a younger one of the hunters, who is kind of like, what are you going to do about this sheriff? And even like maybe halfway through the movie, he flips. And he's like, look, whatever this is, we trust you to do it. And I love that. I know a lot of people love to watch drama between characters. I enjoy when a group of people can come together against something, because to me that's the best part of humanity, and I hope that we can see more things like that. So they're gathered in the church. Paul and Donnie kind of get them into this basement shelter as the creatures start attacking the doors of the church and break in. And so they kind of are playing kind of like this cat and mouse game with the creature, walking through hallways trying to find it and stuff. Donnie gets injured at one point. Paul ends up fighting with the monster, and it is some sort of almost not abominable snowman, but like maybe Wendigo, kind of big bear-like creature with kind of hooves for feet and stuff. So it's not something that has ever been tagged before, pretty much. But he ends up having to fight it. He ends up being able to take it down, and he kills the creature. Everybody starts coming up out of the basement, like, oh great, thank you, we're free now. But then in a final scene that I could do without this one. This is my one part of the thing. I could almost turn the movie off right here and be happy. Final little part, you find out that was not the only creature, and there is a scene outside the church where you just see a bunch of creatures converging over towards the church. So, I don't know, sequel bait maybe, or but I enjoy the character part of it much more than the creature part of it. So for me, it was like, hey, Paul was able to protect these people and do everything, and he's got that the grief that he's felt for not being able to protect. Hopefully he'll be able to come past that. I enjoyed that part much more than the thought of a whole bunch more creatures coming at them. So for me, I don't particularly care for that final thing, but definitely you could see where they're going to go with a sequel to it if the movie did well. You never know. But so that's the story, that's the movie itself, and then I'll do another quick section on what exactly is it that I like about it so much, because, you know, you hear the story and maybe it sounds very generic, very your typical kind of creature horror movie, but there are things about this that I just love, and I will get into that here in just a second. So things I love about this movie and why it kind of stands out for me versus a lot of, I mean, I think I mentioned I watch a lot of movies. I watch a lot of horror movies specifically. It's kind of my genre, and I watch a lot, and there's a lot of junk. And every now and then you'll find a gem in the junk, and this is a gem that I found. And what I love about it is it's almost more, I called it earlier a horror drama. I would say maybe it's a drama horror. I mean, it really is about these characters that just happen to be in this situation. And Kevin Durand playing the sheriff is just amazing. He's every single scene he's in, even up to the end when he's finally getting some redemption with the creature, is just the sadness and grief in his performance. And then you got the blue filters kind of coming through that kind of give everything this kind of melancholy sadness as well. You got the deputy who, you know, he was shot recently. His partner died. You know, there's sadness there as well. The wife, she's got her own version of grief over what happened to their son. And so and then you have like the hunters and stuff that, like, you know, their livelihoods a lot of times is around what they can hunt. And there's no animals in the forest right now. So even they're feeling it. So there's just this sense of just melancholy and sadness over everything. And the acting really does a great job with that, because you can see some of the different ways that they come at it. Like for Paul, it's grief and sadness and quiet and just kind of solitude and not being able to talk to his wife, not being able to talk to his deputy, not being able to talk to the people of the town anymore. Just that kind of a grief. And then you've got Susan, her grief is, you know, she is trying to get out and still be able to do stuff. She's trying to communicate with her husband. She's not really getting anything back, but she also knows that, you know, maybe right now he needs the space, so she stays with her family. And so her grief is coming from a little bit different place. And then the deputy, you know, he's got the grief of everything that happened in New York, but here he is. He's new to the town. He's learning everything. He's getting to know people. He's going to the bar a lot, talking to the bartender there, making, you know, friends and stuff with people. He's got a really cute few scenes with the horse rancher's daughter, where you can tell there's a mutual attraction there, and they're kind of flirting throughout. And there's a great scene at the end in the church where he's kind of comforting her, and just, again, not huge chunks of the movie are dedicated to this. Just a little bits of scenes here sparkle through, and it pays off at the end. And I love it. There's no, like, we're going to stuff this in your face. This is just watching people live and watching people interact with each other. And I mentioned too that I love that everybody comes together. You know, there is one kind of jerk character in the first part of the movie that kind of gives, again, the sheriff a little bit of a hard time on not being able to solve what's going on. But as soon as he realizes just how crazy this is, even he gets in line and he's helping. And, you know, he's a hunter, so he's got his gun and he's helping to protect people while the sheriff is trying to, you know, go fight the creature and stuff. So I love everybody coming together like that. And the characters, again, were just great. All the acting I thought was great. You know, you got somebody like Bianca Kajlik, who, you know, I know her from Halloween Resurrection, where I would not say she was the best actress in the world, but I loved her work here. Again, just very quiet and calm, and just going through her own version of grief. And I'll warn people up ahead, this is very much a slow burn movie. It's a lot of character work. It's a lot of just actors working against each other. We don't see the creature in full till near the end, and it's kind of a CGI creation, so it's not going to be your best, you know, graphics or creature effects. But for me, that wasn't the point. It was all the character interactions that took place first. That's what I loved. And so, you know, even, like I said, even like the bartender and the hunters and the daughter of the horse ranch, even the horse ranch guy himself, who comes off as kind of a prick at the very beginning of the movie, is, you know, by about halfway through, he's like, you're feeling the sympathy for him and what he's having to go through for these horses and stuff. So again, I can't keep saying it enough. The characters of this movie are what made it. It's why I love it. It's why I can watch it over and over and over again. Much more than the creature part of it. Just the drama and the aspects of the characters working with each other. So that's Dark Was the Night. That is a 2014 release. I found it currently, I believe it's on Prime. I think I saw it originally on Netflix, but, you know, streaming services are bouncing back and forth all over the place. But right now it is if you have a subscription to Amazon Prime, you'd be able to catch it there. And even non-horror fans, I think you would like this because the horror really is not the main part of the story. The main part of the story really is the interactions with these characters and their lives and their grief and the things that they're having to do to try to overcome this. And just real quick thing that I didn't even notice. I've watched this movie probably 4 or 5 times at this point. So the sheriff's name is Paul Shields. The whole movie is about he hasn't been able to protect his family. He's not being able to protect the town through all this. But then at the end, he is the protector of the town. He's their shield. So I got a kick out of that. Paul Shields. All right. Well, with that fun little bit, I will let you guys go. But again, Dark Was the Night. Wonderful movie. Check it out. If you sounds like it would be something that interests you. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Thank you for listening to me.